Cash is the biggest problem in the US and is the largest waste of money that people have is sitting in cash or pretending a high yield savings is the only place to put their monies.
Hello, I am Ryan Muncie, and welcome to the Move the Chains podcast. As an entrepreneur, best-selling author, performance coach, and keynote speaker, I help athletes, executives, and leaders take the next steps towards success. Everyone needs a big goal, but unless you attack it one step at a time, you will get overwhelmed and fall short. Breaking your big goals into actionable steps and helping you develop consistency is what I do. Each week on this show, I will give you the best tools and tips to achieve your big dreams and interview some of the world's most successful folks so that we can learn how they managed to push through and achieve their dreams. This week, our guest is Yair Klyman. Yair is the founder of Klyman Financial, a financial strategist and Israeli Defense Force veteran who's passionate about helping mid to high net worth individuals find their way to generational success through Resilient Riches, where he teaches ambitious and successful professionals how to take what they've built in their careers and transform it into true generational wealth by incorporating financial literacy as a core value in their lifestyle. He's been featured on Fox News, Yahoo News, Apple News, Huffington Post, among others. Yair, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Ryan, thanks so much. I'm a big fan. I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity today. Been loving what you're doing. Love the new brand style. Love your history. Been following you for a long time. Seen a few of your speeches too, which is great.
Dude, flattery will get you everywhere on this show.
It's a sex appeal of the move.
Hey, so Yair, before we jump in, I'm curious. You've got Israeli Defense Force veteran in your bio there. You've got to have some thoughts on what's going on in the world right now. I know you said you were on TV talking about this a little bit yesterday. So what are you hopeful for? What's best case scenario right now?
So I was an American citizen that went and volunteered in the Israeli army. It's a very unique thing to do. I wasn't Israeli. I'm not Israeli. I'm just Jewish, and I felt like there was a calling to go. So it was pretty unique. When I first went, there was about 55 countries of different people that felt like me, just as passionate, that would fly to Israel just to serve. There was a guy next to me who was like like me and him were like the super soldiers at the point. You would be way tougher than the super soldiers, just FYI. But this guy was literally a German, non-Jewish guy. His grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. His grandmother was a righteous Gentile, meaning she hid Jews in the Holocaust.
Oh.
And he was like some super athlete in Germany, like international level. And he went, I want to serve in the Israeli army. So the Israeli army is really built off of like global communities around the world that are embedded and part of the Israeli army that are fighting against a certain ideology. So right now, just something to talk about, and for people who are listening at home, if you to understand what's going on in Israel is to understand what happens in many different regions in the world. So if you talk about the India-Pakistan debate and what's going on with India-Pakistan, Pakistan came in, they started killing the Indians. Indians came back and started shooting at them. India is way more powerful, but Pakistan's way more aggressive, and they're all fighting this one Islamist jihadic movement, which is a very small sect of the Islamic community. They are considered a fringe group and a small percentage, about 10 to 15% of the entire Islamist world. The problem that that Israel is having is people don't understand who Israel is fighting right now. Israel is fighting a radical Islamist community, a subsect of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded in Egypt, of Hamas, which is the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's remainder. The Muslim Brotherhood is the umbrella. Can we go like into more geopolitical politics? If you're fine with that,
yeah.
So Muslim Brotherhood was the umbrella. If you go into Saudi Arabia, the Muslim Brotherhood was pretty prevalent in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis went, the Muslim Brotherhood is our enemies, and they killed them to a level that you couldn't. They killed their babies. They exterminated them. If you go into, people always talk about like, okay, well, how come Egypt doesn't take in the Palestinians? The subsect of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, who has indoctrinated their community, unfortunately, had a Muslim Brotherhood section in them. They actually were the government at the point before they got overthrown. So when people say, "Oh, how come Egypt doesn't let them in?" They go, "Well, we had these jihadists, this radical group, come into our community, and we killed them and kicked them out." So back in, I forgot the year when the last time there was fighting inside Gaza. Israel, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, and the Egyptians fought against Hamas shoulder to shoulder.
Huh.
So then you go, okay, what is going on in the world, and where is all this funding coming from? This regime. So in 1979, the Islamist community, different than the moderate community, overthrew the Iranian regime. They overthrew the moderate community. And then took power, and now they have a state-sponsored power. They killed my great uncle. If you saw me on Newsmax yesterday, and killed my great uncle, he was the wealthiest civilian in the entire country, first advisor to the king, and basically hanged him in the streets and said, the Jews are not safe here. 80,000 Jews left the next day. It started the revolution. So the Islamist community has been building a enormous repertoire of enormous reserve of funds and influence across the world. Students for Justice of Palestine, for example, which is, if you see you see, Ryan, in universities, you're seeing all the time, like people fighting and all these protests. The head of the Students of Justice of Palestine is a convicted Muslim Brotherhood member.
Okay.
The protests, and then you see like the ICE raids in California. Who did they arrest? Convicted Muslim Brotherhood members. So Israel, and why the West is so for Israel. Yes, what is happening in Gaza is terrible, but why it has to be so aggressive is because there's already been history talking about these people. There's already been a history about this jihadist community that says, we need to kill Israel. We need to destroy Israel so we can then come after the West and destroy America, the little devil, the big devil. So I was able to see this firsthand and understand. I thought all people, like I was an American, everybody's good and everybody's great and we could talk to these people. But the problem is these people literally want the annihilation of everybody else. And you cannot give them an inch, because if they take an inch, they'll come in and kill your whole family, like I have physically seen in the West Bank and in other regions in Israel.
That last part is such an interesting perspective. I think most people, when we have conversations here in the U.S. with our friends, or even when you talk about it on TV, or you think about how should we approach this, most of our thought process is based on an assumption that the people we're talking about will act like we do. And as you just pointed out, that's not how they think about this, look at this. And I mean, I don't think when people have this conversation and think about courses of action that they consider the folks in question they don't just want to kill the military age males of Israel or the US or the West, whatever, but that they want to kill everybody, kids, women, dogs, whatever. And that changes things.
Correct. So that's the problem where, like, why is right now the Ayatollah, they're decimated? Why is he saying we won't surrender? Because deeply rooted in his thought process is the world. They need to, like, why are suicide bombers a thing? Because life is just a fraction of what their entire existence will be. Most of it is having the 72 virgins. Just as a side joke, if you killed yourself and you had 72 virgins, what happens after you sleep with all 72 virgins? Are you like sad? Like, what happens after that point? It's just a question. Like 72 nights, it's all over then, or you can do it in a couple days. But so the question comes down to, okay, how do you handle these people? So there's a lot of, and for your listeners to listen, and next time you hear news, they talk about how the Saudis, and Donald Trump talks about it a lot, and a lot of the leaders, how the Saudis have to get involved. Why the Saudis? And we could talk about this forever, and I don't want to steal the whole show on this specific point, but why the Saudis are so important. As I said before, the Saudis took out the Muslim Brotherhood, but not only did they take out the Muslim Brotherhood completely, they changed the books. Instead of saying, if I kill 3 Jews and then I kill 7 Jews, how many Jews do I kill? As in literally in the math books, they changed around the books and the way of thinking that Israel is a country, Jews are people, Christians are people, America are people, and we can live with them. So what they're saying is America coming in, making sure that everything is safe, Israel coming in, making sure that they feel comfortable, but the Saudis coming in and re-indoctrinating the youth into just having peaceful ideology. And that is the future. So you're going to hear a lot over the next year, okay, like why did Donald Trump go to Saudi Arabia and Qatar and UAE? Why did he do that? Why is Bahrain normalized ties, relationships with Israel? Why is nobody standing up for Iran right now? Why are the Saudis not protecting them? Because for them, they understand what the threat is. And they're they know and the next stage for them to come in is to help to re-indoctrinate and to unbrainwash the youth so that they can live better lives. And that is the goal of every person that's involved in this conflict, Jewish, not Jewish, Israeli, non-Israeli. It does not matter. The goal is to give these people a better life.
Well, thanks for the crash course on everything that's going on over there. It's helpful to hear from that perspective and, some insight into why everything is happening and unfolding the way it is. I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about financial health and financial literacy. In your bio, that word is actually in there, financial literacy. And I want to start there. How would you define that? Or what does it mean to be financially literate?
So a little background about me. We grew up very, very, very poor in a wealthy community, in like an Orthodox Jewish community. So like people think the Orthodox Jewish are wealthy. Primarily they are, but we were not. So like we had a stack of credit card debt. Like we won the award for the largest amount of credit card debt that you can possibly find. Like that was my dad, and like hundreds of thousands of dollars and house problems, this problem, that problem, and we owed money everywhere. And it was partially because we didn't have financial literacy. So financial literacy, I find, is not so much what do I do with my trading account? What do I do with my checking account? What do I do with my investment account? I don't believe that that's financial literacy. Financial literacy is enough knowledge that when you hear something, you stop and you look it up. So a basic financial literacy, like someone who has basic financial literacy, it's not that they can read the 10K of a stock or know how to invest. It's really that they have things that trigger their mind to go, oh, I heard about a Roth IRA. I heard the word. Let me go look it up. How does that apply to me? So we didn't have that growing up. There was a divide between my parents and the kids about money. Only until things hit the fan did my dad and my mom go like, all right, we're going to talk about this because we're in a recession. That's what they always said. We're in a recession. We're in a recession. And later they're like, hey, like we have some real problems. Like we have some real problems. But I find financial literacy, just like health literacy, like Ryan, in your world, like you're talking to people all the time about their health. You're educating about their health. It's too much information for me to capture as a layman compared to you. But what you do is you give me buzzwords and trigger words that when I hear something, like I hear the word fluoride, or I hear the word genetic testing, or either these things, I look it up and I go, does that make sense for me? And that's what I believe financial literacy needs to be.
I love that explanation and the way of thinking about what that means. I mean, to me, I would always, taking that beyond just financial, but just anything, right? Like to me, that's just it's being a curious person, right? Having a beginner or a learner's mindset where you're just, if something sparks an interest, you look it up, you learn, you just say, hey, like, whatever the thing is. Maybe that's because one of the worst Christmas presents I ever got as a kid was my mom gave me a dictionary, because then she could tell me when I asked, she could say, look it up. And so that was before Google, and now Google's around. And if something's on TV or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and I'll just Google it, or, if a thought pops up. But I think that is, I love that because it's such a transferable skill, right? The ability to be curious, to ask questions, to go down those rabbit holes and learn. It may seem trivial at the time, but you do that 2, 3, 4 times a day with something that interests you. And over a lifetime, you amass an amazing amount of knowledge and information. So if somebody isn't genuinely curious, that's a behavior change, right? What we're really talking about there is a behavior change if somebody isn't curious. And so, from a fitness background, behavior change is very hard to drive, and maybe it's harder in finance. I don't know. So how do you get people to adopt that behavior or that practice?
So it's similar in fitness. Why do people can always go out and exercise, but why do they go and like hire a personal trainer? They're outsourcing their fitness. People outsource their finance like all the time. So what we do for the lazies, if that I call them, like, yes, there's people who are trying to level up, and there's just like a capacity, like an ability issue. Fine. But people who get to a point where they go, all right, I need real financial like literacy. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to pay somebody else to do it. What we try to do is automate everything. I cannot fixing someone who has no financial literacy and trying to fix their budget does not work. I was talking to my friend today. They spend like $35,000 a month. He's not making enough. I can't fix that. But what I can fix and I can automate is I can fix how much money they put away every month for themselves. Because I can do that as an auto transfer, because these types of people are used to just doing, like, ask somebody who's lazy when it comes to financial laziness, ask somebody to write a check, they'll have a meltdown. They won't even know how to do it. They go, oh, can you direct deposit or can I pay with my credit card? That's like going to be the first answer that they say. So what we do is we basically say to them, we're going to pay into your auto account that's going to save for your retirement automatically. Why are 401ks so attractive? Because it comes out before you actually touch the money. So everyone puts into their 401ks no matter what it is. There's an amazing thing. Have you ever heard something called the SUSU? I'm not allowed to talk about it, so if people see this, they're going to get mad at me, like if some of my people see it. Ever heard of what a SUSU is?
No.
It's a Caribbean, any person that you know that's Caribbean or Eastern or Western African, okay? Ask them if they heard of a SUSU. They're going to go, who told you about the SUSU? I'm going to break it right here. A SUSU is, let's say you and me, we like trust each other very deeply, and your brothers and sisters and cousins and everybody you really, really trust. Every week, we put in $100, and I give you, Ryan, $100. All of us, let's just say 52 of us to keep it simple, give you $100 a week. Okay? So every week from 52 people, you're going to get $5,200. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Every week, you take the $5,200, Ryan, as the moderator of the SUSU, and you hand it to one of the 52 people. So what does that do? What is the SUSU? The SUSU is an accountability group. That's all it is. Because every week I have to go to your house, or I have to Venmo you or Zelle you, and it's like a bank's like started regulating this. It's like a crazy thing. But every week I have to do it. So it forces accountability. So for the people who are financially lazy, forcing accountability for yourself is so unbelievably crucial. And to do that is to automate transfers into your investment account. Is to automate transfers into a Roth IRA. Is to automate transfers into your kid's college savings account. Getting money out of your house account and moving it into your future account. You're not gonna, now the second thing we can control is taxes. How much tax do I pay? If you're a business owner, you can pay a lot less tax than somebody who's a W-2 employee. I'm sorry, W-2 employees. Corporations have stolen your soul, and I'm excited for you to come out of that. But the main thing with that piece is you can automate a lot of stuff on the business. You can do a lot of things in terms of real estate, in terms of investing. There's a ton to do there, but you can do it automatically. Like, that's the most amazing agent. So for the people who can't do it, do what works for you. If taking money out of your account every single month works for you, you do it automatically. Make sure it's an auto debit out of your account. Make sure there's checking in there. For people who feel, hey, I need to feel, if they go, I have $200,000 in cash in my bank account. For those who have this issue, I call it cash glut. Set up a separate bank account, a high yield savings account, put all your money in there, make yourself feel poor. Put $10,000 in there. Put $180,000 in the high yield savings. You're going to feel poor, and then you're going to be motivated. You're going to work harder. So for all these things, you can trick your mind into motivating you and making you feel more financially have better financial wellness.
I love this. It's almost like listening to Atomic Habits or something like that, where you're or knowing that you have that fitness background. It's all these little tricks that we might use to make meal prep easier or to stay on your workout plan, whatever it is, and you're just shifting it to how do I create this friction-free environment or reduce friction to better be able to do the things that get me closer to my goals. I love it. I've got a bunch of specific questions, but before we jump into some of those, I'm curious with your background, and you said your family had this, giant stack of credit card debt. How were you guys able to work to get from there to a place where now you can actually teach people how to create generational wealth?
Yeah. So how do we get from negative $1 million to many, many millions is the question.
Right.
Thank God. Hopefully it only continues and let it keep raining down, God willing. But what we did for the people who are in debt, I just want to talk to those people for a second. For the people who are in debt, number one, you are not alone. There is over $1.5 trillion of credit card debt in this country, and that's just credit card debt. Student debt's right behind it, so they're just like hanging out as friends. But there is a serious amount of debt. What I will say to you is this, what we did from our experience. I'm not saying to do it yourselves. When they came to foreclose, to come and kick us out of our home, you don't have to do that. You don't have to leave. And you can kick things down the road. And what happened to us, and my mom gets very mad when I talk about this, but what happened to us is, and Ryan, you have that feeling that I feel like I should spill my guts to you, which is the personal trainer side, like the fitness side of you. What happened was, for about 10 years, we didn't pay our mortgage. We didn't pay our taxes. We didn't pay our insurance. What we needed was a reset. And we had help. We hired attorneys. We did everything we could. Credit cards, for example, we didn't pay our credit cards. I'm not saying to do this. I'm saying this is just what we did from our experience. We didn't pay our credit cards. So after a year, what happens is the credit card companies send it to collections, and the collections companies start calling you and yelling at you and yelling and calling and calling. And then all of a sudden you change your phone number. They're like, oh, I don't know. I don't have a number to call anymore. This is weird. And they send you letter and letter and letter and letter. And they go after your wages. And if you're a business owner, things change and they go after your personal checking account. But if you have a wife that's if you're married and she's not on any of the credit card debt or anything like that, they can't go after her checking account, just to be honest. And what will happen is everybody will settle with you. Because they'll say, we lost you. We lost in this bet. Why is there a bank on every corner? Because most of the time they're winning, but they lose pretty rarely. So if you need a reset, there are resets available. There's a lot of resets available. If you're behind on your taxes, which is the worst debt you can be, there are tax repair experts out there that will help you negotiate your tax debt. So these are things that we talk to people a lot about. I'm not saying what to do or do what we did, but there's strategies out there. If you need a reset, you're not alone. It is the most hard feeling to deal with. But what I can tell you is sometimes you just need a break and you need to reset and rewire your brain, and things can actually get better. Obviously, there will be repercussions. You might get sued, but you can always pay. My dad always said you can always pay. So they're going to come back to you. They came back to us with credit card debt. Let's say it was $100,000. They said, okay, give me 20 grand. And my dad ignored, give me 15 grand. I settled it for $13,000. Took 15 years. Worked for us. But I'm not saying it works for everybody, but there is a reset on that point.
Got it. Is there, let's say somebody has, I don't know, you mentioned student debt, right? So let's say somebody has a lot of student debt and maybe the income is there, but the debt is so high that it's going to be, 5, 10, 15 years to pay that off. I mean, what's the strategy there?
Okay, so student debt is the trickiest one because it's basically like debt that dies with you. So one is you want to make sure you have life insurance to cover the debt just in case something were to happen, because some of it is forgivable on death and some of it is not. They'll take it from your estate. The second side on student debt is if there is something called loan forgiveness. So there is loan forgiveness that if you work for a nonprofit, it's very vague and nobody really knows the actual answer. But you're talking about like loan forgiveness will actually end up forgiving the loan. Check on ChatGPT. I don't know much about it because it's so vague on it. But check ChatGPT. There are loan forgiveness programs for people who are working in nonprofits or things like that. The third side for student debt is there's a lot of refinancing options. So the key is when you're looking at student debt, and it's not something you could just avoid, address the ones with the high, it sounds simple, but address the ones with a higher interest first and declutter the debt. So what will happen is you'll take 10 loans. You'll have 10 different loan companies that are all lending and they're all selling it all the time. So pay off the higher interest first, pay off the little balances. If it's a $200 or $1,000, just pay those off. Just be done with those. And your income has to be part of the income is paying off the debt, but do it in a strategic way. If you do that strategically, you can cut your loan time to pay off probably 5 years if it's a 15 years. But if you do it just, I'm paying the debt and I'm just going to pay it and it's there forever, that is running away from your problem instead of addressing your problem. Student loan debt does not go away. It's not something you could just default on.
Got it. So you mentioned using auto pay to make saving an automatic thing. I love that idea. I think it fits in really nicely with our concept of moving the chains and doing the one thing every day. I'm curious from a financial planning standpoint, do you have, in an ideal world, a percentage that you would, like if somebody could put aside your perfect percentage or ideal percentage, how much should somebody be saving? And if they're not at that level, how do they work to being able to put away that much every month?
So I think the crucial point of this is two sides. One is people think, okay, I need to have like emergency savings to cover something. I don't really know what that something is. So what does an emergency savings need to be? It needs to be if you lose your job, if you get sick, if you die, or an emergency, like something happens, there's a fire or whatever. You can insure most of those risks. If you pass away, you can have life insurance. If you get sick, you can have disability insurance or life insurance with an illness protection rider. If you get sued, you can have an umbrella policy. You can insure for all this is very cheap, like very inexpensive. You can insure most of it away. Now the big risks are losing your job. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't really have that risk. If you're a W-2 employee, yes, there's a higher risk of losing your job than the other side. So first is to make sure that you have all the protection pieces. Once you do that, you do not need as much cash as people are thinking. Dave Ramsey has a percentage. You need to have 6 months of emergency savings. But the question is, number one, what is your lifestyle? Is your lifestyle $25,000 a month? If it's $25,000 a month, you need $300,000 in a year to live after tax. So if you need that, okay, then you need a lot more in savings. But you don't need 6 months. Because what's the risk? The risk is losing your job. But that does not mean that you'll lose your job and lose your income tomorrow. So I tell people all the time, you should have a low percentage, a very low percentage, 5. It's much more, what is your income? What is your expense? Let's cover that expense. Everything else should be working for you in some capacity. Cash is the biggest problem in the US and is the largest waste of money that people have is sitting in cash or pretending a high yield savings is the only place to put their monies.
All right. I want to dig into two things you just said there. Let's talk about why cash is a problem and talk about how you can make your money work for you.
So why cash? Is that the question, or I saw balloons on the screen?
I know that's what I'm laughing at. I think somehow Riverside thought I was celebrating something. I don't know.
Congratulations.
Yes, that's the question. Why is cash a problem? And the other thing you said is let that work for you. So then what would be the alternative if we don't want to keep it in cash?
So you can put money into very conservative vehicles. So cash right now is paying about 4% if you put in the high yield savings. A little less, a little more. It's going to be coming down once the Fed cuts interest rates. What they're talking about, that's probably going to happen within the next 12 months because what they're saying is Jerome Powell is going to be fired. Scott Bessent is probably going to be nominated to be the Fed. Scott Bessent is a very close Trump ally. Trump has been yelling at the Fed to lower the interest rates. It's probably going to happen. That's why if you see mortgage rates are coming down, because it's all about thinking the rates are going to come down. So cash is a big problem because if you're getting 4% and the market is averaging, let's say 7 or 8%, over time, people will consistently put more money into cash. Why? Because when the markets come down, everyone's stomach really, really hurts them. And they go, well, I can't go back in the market. I've already have so much money in the market. How can I risk anymore? But cash is a comfort. Like, why do people keep cash under their pillow? It's not because to hide it. It's because it's comfortable for them. That's like the reason why why they hide it under their mattress. It's because it's just like comfortable. It's close to them. So cash is a problem for two sides. Number one, I think it doesn't allow people to work as hard as they should. Number two, you're only getting 4% when you should be averaging 8% over time. An average of 8% in the market over time, or real estate, or whatever you have. But lazy financial is easy. Just put in the market, give it to a robo advisor. It doesn't make a difference. Give it to Fidelity. They'll do something with it, but you'll average much higher than the cash you have. The downside of putting everything in the market is it might go down and you might need the money. But that's why I think keep cash just to cover the big expenses that you have coming up, special expenses, and in case something were to happen in case of an emergency.
You mentioned real estate, you mentioned markets. Are there others? And I guess since those are the first ones to come out, are those your favorite asset classes, or would you answer that with something different?
I would say everybody has to look at who they are as a person. So when you're looking at investing, you look at who you are as a person. I am somebody that does not like any headaches. If you tell me like what to do, or like, hey, if you you're gonna put your money in this, and then you're gonna have to work on it in like some real estate property in Bumble, Minnesota, I just won't do it, and I'll ghost that person in 2 seconds. But if you said, hey, if you can put money in here, we're gonna deal with the whole thing for you. The fees are gonna be low, everything's gonna make sense, and you're gonna make a lot of money on it. Great, I'll do that all day, every day. Might not make as much if I was actively handling it, but passively, I'm very comfortable. So I view investing, if I'm looking for growth, if I'm looking to grow my wealth very quickly, I'm going to put more money into like smaller businesses, smaller companies, in private investments, things like that. If I'm looking for something that's going to generate income and be very conservative, I'll go into real estate. If I'm looking for something that's just like throw crap against the wall and hope for the best, I could go into like cryptocurrency and things like that have no real track record, but could do really well. And some people like say they know about crypto, but like there's really no history showing that they know about crypto, but it has done very well for people. And I have that. I have real estate myself. I own my own home. Like I have I have probably 30 different investments. I have private credit that I lend out in private credit. I have hard money loans I lend out in hard money loans. I have a little bit of everything, but each asset class has a different purpose. Each one is different. Real estate is conservative. Bonds are conservative. Cash is for liquidity. Investing stock like S&P 500 stock markets for long term. Mutual funds are for 401ks. ETF strategies are for individual accounts. Sorry to go into specific. These are just my thoughts on like and I'm hoping people take this away. These are the ways to utilize each vehicle. No one is better than another, but they're used differently.
No, that's a really cool answer. I appreciate you going into that kind of detail. I guess another thing that kind of pops into my head that may be helpful for some listeners is, as you were laying out some of this a minute ago, you're talking about, X amount of money in call it a rainy day or a savings account, and then, investing in whatever the vehicles might be, whether it's real estate or the stock market, whatever. Let's say somebody hears that and they haven't been doing any of this, and they're just like, oh my gosh, that sounds like must be nice to be able to do that. Can you talk through like how you would help somebody get from not doing any of this to getting to a point where they're very comfortable with their financial health and future?
So Bill Ackman, who I've met before and is great, I think is like an amazing guy, controversial but amazing. He had a line where he said every day, and you say it a lot, Ryan, every day is to create progress. Like you talk about progress and like growing every single day and making small actions to have like ripple effects. I think the first thing people should do in general is to set themselves up for like retirement. Do a Roth. If you're making under a certain limit, check with your tax CPA or look online. You can put money into a Roth IRA. You can do that $10 a month, $5 a month, $2 a month. The point of it is to create in your mind that not everything is for today. Once you do that, you think, okay, well, I'm doing something healthy for myself. I do $50 a month. It does not matter, but you start. So every person should start. When I was in Israel, I was just living, I bought some stocks, some Cisco stocks, because I read something about Cisco and how it was like the next Apple. And I was kind of right. And I like doubled my money in like a year or two. It was awesome. And I used that money to literally travel for 4.5 months straight on like in the Europe and Southeast Asia, which was like awesome because Southeast Asia is like so cheap. And I was able to use that stuff. But like I did progress. I was like, you know what? I have this cash. I want to invest. It was like my army salary because I didn't spend any money and I was making like $300 a month. It was a lot of money at the time, in my mind. And I was spending that and I was putting that money into something that helped me better. And that allowed me to travel. So I think for people to start, do make a little bit of progress every day. I don't care if it's $1 a month, but do something that's different than what you're doing now. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Try something new. So the technical, because everyone talks about ideas, but execution is key. Go to, for example, fidelity.com. Not recommending Fidelity, but it's an option. Go to fidelity.com, set up, they'll prompt you to open up a Roth IRA, go into the Roth IRA, open up and says auto transfer it into it, call Fidelity and ask them to invest the money for you and however they decide with the risk tolerance and stuff like that. But just do that. That takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes to enhance yourself in the future. If you can't do that, then have somebody else do it for you because it's really important.
That's such a great answer. You mentioned the Roth IRA. This is actually one of the questions that one of our listeners sent in, and we'll get to maybe some more of those in a few minutes, but I do want to ask this one now. So the question is, I make more than whatever the cutoff threshold is for a Roth IRA, and they want to do a backdoor Roth. So once they do that and create it, the question then is, can I contribute to it annually with whatever that annual maximum contribution is, even if my annual salary is higher than the threshold?
The answer is yes. So let's go into just for everybody. So a backdoor Roth. So if you have a Roth IRA, for example, I have Roth IRAs. The limit for two people is approximately $250,000 of taxable income. If you make over $250,000 of taxable income, I'm just approximating, it is too much money you make too much money to put into a traditional Roth IRA. There's a workaround for it that you put into, and you could set it up. Just look online, like how do I set up a backdoor Roth? So you're going through the back door. I go online and I say, okay, well, I'm going to put the number in $7,000 a year into a non-deductible IRA. I'm going to put in day one, non-deductible IRA, put $7,000 in, and day two, I'm going to convert it. I'm going to move the money from traditional IRA, non-deductible, to Roth IRA. So I don't take any deduction on it, and I move it into a Roth IRA. Every year, now I have Roth IRAs that can grow. I can pull the principal out. There's a lot of really the most amazing vehicle out there. All the money grows tax-free. Every year, I can put that money in. Now, for those people who are W-2 employees, check with your plan. If you have a 401k plan at your company or a 403b, go into your 403b plan and make sure that check to see if there is a Roth 401k or Roth 403b. There is no income limit. You don't need to deal with the backdoor Roth. It's up to $23,000 approximately that you can put into that every single year and still get the matching, which is like a new Biden proposal bill that was passed. So these are and then if you're an employee, if you're an employer and you're just like a solo employer, you can go and set up your own 401k plan. But in your 401k plan, you can go into the Roth 401k plan, which will allow you to put in that $23,000 number. There is a workaround for everybody. Everybody should be having a Roth IRA. Roth IRA, Roth 401k, Roth solo 401k.
That is awesome. That was so good. I'm going to ask you a couple more of these listener questions real fast. Number one tip to create generational wealth.
So generational wealth is a question. Okay. It's number one, I don't want to leave my kids a ton of money and then they're spoiled and they blow it. So first is let's work to preserve our generational wealth. So that's first, because everyone's going to leave their kids something. It could be 10 cents. It doesn't make a difference. Generational wealth is going to get passed. So there's different vehicles to do that. What most people do is they set up a strategy to make sure that their kids, number one, they tell their kids they're poor. Like telling your kids you're poor is the best way to tell your kids that, like, to make sure your kids aren't spoiled. I have a friend of mine who found out he kills himself, and he was like making 100, 200, 500. He now makes like $3 million a year. He gets a call from his dad one day. His dad goes, "Yeah, just so you know, you have $10 million in a trust. I'm worth 500 million. We have $150 million in a foundation." That was like 10 years ago that he told him that. And he's like, "What? Like, I've been killing myself for years to get to this point." He's like, "Yeah, I knew that." So like, don't tell your kids you're rich, and like, you would never know. Like, it's really, I mean, the guy's making 30 million bucks a year, easy. So you would never know. Number one, don't tell your kids that you're rich. Number two, engage your kids with money. Do not pretend that money isn't a conversation in the house. The same way, if you want your kids to be healthy, you talk about health. You do push-ups in front of your kids. Like, I work out with my kids. They're 2 and 4. I literally work out with them, and they do push-ups and they have fun with it. It's great, and that brings health. So like, when I go out and pay for things, I give them the credit card to pay. I go, "Oh, how much does that cost? How much is this? Is this expensive? That's too much. Let's return it." And I go with them, and I create the motions of like, "No, this is too expensive on Amazon. We shouldn't buy this." Like, we talk about that. So you're getting your kids to not be spoiled. The second side of it also, and the technical aspect, which is, I think, more of the question, is to make sure that, number one, you can create generational wealth through a couple vehicles. Easiest vehicle is to do it in life. If you're trying to leave your kids money, easiest vehicle is life insurance. You put money into a life insurance policy, you die, it's going to your kids. Congratulations, generational wealth. You left a legacy. It's beautiful. Second side is, now, to protect that, you got to protect it, fine. The second, and what you can do when you do in the life insurance strategy is you can spend all your money, because no matter what happens, your kids are going to inherit the life insurance. Great. Second side is, if you do small things, but you do it in your kids' names over time. So each of your children, let's say you're buying property, and each of your children own shares in the property, that will pass down to your kids more efficiently. They'll have things on their tax bracket, and you're already starting to think about passing money down to the next generation. It becomes part of this life cycle. And the third side is, you want to make sure your kids are not getting spoiled. So you pass the money down, it goes into a trust account, and there's free trusts you can go online to purchase, or like a couple dollars a month, that when you pass, it'll go into a trust. And the trust has provisions that your kids cannot have access to the money unless it's for specific reasons, like school, things like that. But they can't touch it till they're 25, 35, 45, and different tiers on times that they're actually able to take out the money. So one is to protect them on the emotional side. Two is to protect them on how to do it financial, no matter what. And number three is legal and credit protection.
Damn, that's a great answer. Thank you. Biggest financial mistake that people make?
Biggest financial mistake that people made is this stupid comment: "I'm throwing away my money on rent." It is the dumbest comment that people make. The dumbest. Let's talk about this comment, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So I owned an apartment in Manhattan. I bought it for $850,000. And everyone said to me, "You're throwing your money away on rent. Go buy your apartment." So I went and bought this apartment. The taxes and maintenance alone was $3,000, $2,500 a month. If I rented, I would have rented it for $3,700. Okay. So there's a $1,200 difference. Okay. I had $1,200 went into the equity and built. Great. Wonderful. I had a mortgage. So the interest, I had to pay interest on that. So that ate away my $1,200. Let's say that ate away $1,000. So I had $200 left of equity that I was building. And now I hope the property appreciates. Okay. When I bought but now, great. That's all good and amazing. But the average life cycle of somebody owning a home is really only like 3 to 5 years. So all that's great. Let's just say, all things equal, the property appreciated, and I was making more than I was making more on the property, like growing the rent and the mortgage and everything together was equal. But the real issue that people don't deal with is, number one, the transfer taxes to go into a property. You pay mortgage transfer. Number one, you pay transfer taxes for the actual property. You pay then mortgage taxes on the property when you borrow a mortgage, which is like 2%. So you're paying, let's say you borrow $500,000, you're paying 10 grand up front. You're paying the actual transfer taxes, which is, let's say, another 1 or 2% closing costs with your attorney and this and that and all this, and title insurance. So you're spending like $25,000 right up front. Then 3 to 5 years, you get bored or you outgrow it, or you just realize it's too much money and you've got to sell it. Now you got to get a broker, which is an average of, let's say, 5%. You got to pay the transfer taxes again. And you got so into this trap that you can't ever rent, you go out and buy something else. So nobody factors in the opening costs and the closing costs on both sides. So buying into the apartment and selling the apartment to factor into, am I throwing money away on rent? If you are listening to Ryan's podcast, you're going to understand that you have to put, if you're saving too much, don't leave it in cash, put it to work for you in whatever vehicle works for you. But the cost, and now the last cost, the biggest cost, so we didn't factor in, is I put $200,000 down into that apartment. That cost me, if I left my money in a high yield savings account, that would cost me $8,000 a year. That's $700 a month right now. Approximately. So $700 a month was a cost because I was losing access to the $200,000 for it to grow. Cost me upfront, cost me to close. I made no money on my property and I owned it for 5-6 years and I didn't waste my money on rent. That's what everybody says. If I would have rented, I probably would have had another $100,000 on top of the money I lost.
I love the math. And that's when you can use data and numbers. It takes away the emotional or the opinion, right? It's just like that's fact, right? And it's just no, that's awesome. I appreciate you running us through those examples. So let's go a couple more questions before we let you go. I know I want to be respectful of your time. You've built several charities. Tell us a little bit about some of the nonprofits and why you wanted to do that.
So I believe in, and I'm sure you did too, when you sold your company, I'm assuming you did pretty well on it financially.
Not as well. So here's a lesson for everybody that I don't think I've said this on some, but maybe not even on my own podcast, but the biggest mistake I made was not having members on contract. The whole time I had my facility, I said, hey, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. So it was just month to month auto renew. So when it came time to sell the gym, that was a huge negative for the purchaser. But it wasn't a total loss, but it definitely didn't get the multiples of revenue that it could have or should have.
That's interesting. So what you're saying, and just to be clear, is and this is very big in general in all businesses, your multiples, your enterprise value, what you could sell your company for, is going to be based off of the residual revenue that you are making, the consistent revenue, the passive revenue, because that is scalable. That's unlimited. So for people who are in the sale business and then they close, like, why is it that mortgage brokers can't sell their business? Because it's all new business. There's no recurring revenue. Life insurance brokers can't sell their business really. It's all new commissions, no real revenue. Investment advisors have about an 8x multiple. Property insurance brokers have like an 8 to 10x multiple because it's all residual. So understanding that model, it's great to make money, but understanding that the residual is actually what's going to sell for the multiple over time is like a really, that was amazing what you just said. Like that's a genius thing.
I had to learn it the hard way, but it's such an important lesson in business. There's a great book called Built to Sell, and I read that way too late in my entrepreneurial, well, not too late, but too late for the gym. But no, it's right. Like if you look back, like for somebody who was going to acquire my facility, if I left, I don't mean this about me personally, but like I was the star. I was the thing that made it go. And so without me, it's the same thing with some of those, like the life insurance salesmen or some of the other businesses that you mentioned. It's that person that makes it go. And so another way of thinking about this, and something I talk to a lot of my coaching clients about, this is how it was phrased to me. If you can't leave your business and have it run without you, you don't actually have a business. You have a hobby that makes money.
I love that. And it's all scale. Everything is about scale, and everything is about it, like working in the business, working on the business. And that's, you lose creativity. And I will tell you my feeling on like what's going on with AI and everything like that. If you have to work on the business and like be that person, you're going to be replaced by AI. But if you're someone who can work on the, like, be a visionary, be creative, design new thoughts and strategies, you will not be replaced with the AI. The implementers, the day-to-day grinders will be replaced because you can automate that. For example, a day-to-day grinder is a cleaning lady. That will be automated by AI. Drivers will be automated by AI. Those are the people who are actually, but the Ubers of the world are not getting automated by AI. The visionaries of the world, the concepts, the strategies are not getting automated. So in order to make yourself AI proof or recession proof, make sure that you are the visionary in your company, or the visionary, the person that brings in the ideas and brings in the revenue.
No, that's a scary. I think you're dead on. I think you're very accurate in that statement. But what's scary about that is the people who can actually think like a visionary, I think, are a very small percentage of people. I think you can train that. I think people can learn that. But people that are innately or sort of by default visionary or strategy thinkers, it's a small percentage of the population.
So let me ask you this. You said you can train that. How would you train it?
I go back to some of the things we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, where even your definition of financial literacy, where you're saying, you're teaching your clients, or an individual is teaching themselves to be curious and to think, well, what does this mean? And now you're starting to pull the threads and starting to think beyond just, hey, somebody told me potatoes are bad, so I'm not going to eat potatoes, right? And so now, if you can start to say, well, why are potatoes bad? And I start to think, and I start to look that up. It's like, well, could they be useful in certain scenarios, or in what ways could they be useful? Or you start to think differently, ask different questions, and I think that is a skill that can be taught and learned.
Yeah, I agree with you. I tell people all the time, like, if you want to be creative, go for a walk without your phone, bring a little notebook, and write down what your ideas are. You do that, you're going to be creative. You're going to work on the creative muscle, but you can't do it being distracted all day long with Instagram or all these other like things that are just trying to take our attention.
That's such a great point. And I forget how I used to phrase this, but you have to balance consumption with creation, right? If you're always consuming, you can't be creating. I mean, that's what you're saying right there. I mean,
I love that.
If I've always got, but I say balance because at some point you need inspiration, or you need something to sort of say, okay, I like that. I want to do my version of that, or I want to weave this into what it is that I do. But we do have to be aware of where we are on that spectrum of consuming and creating.
Agreed. I love that. I think that's like super deep, and I think that's like crucial for a lot of people. And I think that's the problem that AI is allowing us to do. They're forcing us to consume a lot more, and they're not allowing us to create. I think people are going to fall into the consumption category instead of the creation category, and the success will rise to creation. They'll be able to create in levels that we've never seen before, and the people who won't will fall into consumption.
Yeah, that gap is only going to get wider.
Yeah. That's the 99% gap. It's actually just like I'm having that epiphany right now while talking to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already at that point where it's very hard not to get caught up in consumption, right? I mean, just look at all the different social media platforms and streaming platforms and TV and podcasts and Audible. And that's not to say that they're all bad. It's very easy to consume content of any kind. And it's also the path of least resistance. It's easier to sit on the couch and turn the TV on than it is to sit on the couch and do nothing.
Agreed.
And that's why so many people are consuming so much. And a lot of times they're well-intentioned. I mean, you're listening to this podcast. You have a podcast. I mean, again, I'm not saying content is bad, but if we're going to create, we have to at least temporarily pause the input, the sensory input, in order to be able to think and create and have output.
Agreed. I think it's really important. It makes me very hopeful for the future that we're going to be able to see such a clear delineation. And for those who aren't in it, like me and you are like not in it because we're not the youth, like we're not like my kids are going to be in it. So we're able to still see things very differently. I don't think they'll be able to see things differently than we do.
We don't have kids, but I'm sure with somebody like with your amount of awareness, I mean, that's got to be a scary thing and a tricky thing to navigate. I mean, have you thought about how you want to have them engage with that and how you want to guide them?
I do I do a couple things. Number one, to help with that, just to free up my time, I use a bidet. That helps a lot. That helps like 10 to 15 minutes a day, just in general. Just that's my one tip for people, game changer. Number two, what I put my phone on, if you could see my phone, and I'm scared to look at it because of all the people harassing me. The my phone's on grayscale. So I actually keep my phone on black and white 100% of the time. And you can do that on your phone very simply. Just say like, "Hey Siri, turn on grayscale." That actually reduces the amount that you are addicted to your phone an hour less a day on average. So you could do things again to trick your mind. It's all about. I love automation, so it just tricks your mind. I'm an efficiency junkie, so that's the second thing that you can do. The third thing you can do for your kids, if your kids are getting very addicted to TV, I didn't read this anywhere. We just tried it, and it's been amazing. We have, instead of a TV, we got rid of the TV, and we have, or an iPads and stuff like that, and we have a projector. So they watch the same shows, but it's on a projector, and it screens into our living room. And the kids, all of a sudden, they get up, they go to the bathroom, they go eat something, they come back 10 minutes later. So like, I'm not saying no TV, like we keep it Fridays and Sundays at a pretty minimal level, but like and you don't want them to be behind like other kids are playing Paw Patrol and things like that. But to just have a projector that all the rays that the TV is coming to you to say, "Watch me, watch me, watch me, watch me," goes away. So I say that for everybody. If you have an addiction to something, which is so common, change the way that you consume that content and do it in a way that it doesn't really make a difference. Projectors are like $250 now. It's super cheap. It's super easy. It's like perfect. The audio is great. Like it's cheaper than TV.
That's such a great idea, because not just for the addiction aspect, but the health aspect, the blue light and the intensity of the light. That's really, I love that idea.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really great. And it also, you can put away a projector. You can't put away your TV. Like people ask us, "Where's your TV?" Yeah, we don't have one. Like I feel bad for the babysitters. Let me get over it.
Hey, Yair, this has been awesome. Two closing questions for you. Number one, where can listeners follow you and get more of your information?
So we host the Resilient Riches podcast, and Ryan, we'd love to have you as a guest. That's kind of why I came on, to pitch you to come on our podcast. I have a lot of questions, health questions. I think our audience would love that.
I'm down. You could have just sent me an email and I would have said yes. But I'm glad you're here. This has been a great conversation.
All right, good. So the Resilient Riches podcast, we talk about business owners, success, how to build wealth, how to grow wealth. And it's really much more about mindset and doing things in a way that's very tangible and very easy. And not so much like technical, this is what a Roth IRA is. That's not really what we do. And then you can follow me on Instagram, Klyman Financial, Klyman Financial. Check out our site, KlymanFinancial.com. We have a ton of free content. We try to give out as much value as we possibly can, and try to make the biggest impact we can. You'll see me we're the writers for the Huffington Post, with their financial advisors on the Huffington Post. You'll see us on Newsmax, Fox, and all the major channels talking about finance, Israel, and the love of entrepreneurship in this country, and the amazing opportunity we have to live in this country.
We'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes and make it easy on everybody to follow up and find you. Last question for you. Final piece of advice for somebody listening that wants to be more consistent or better at moving the chains, or as you put it earlier, that one thing every day to get better or move forward.
I would say the easiest thing somebody can do for themselves is to write down. It's super simple, to write down the 5 values that they find most important in their life. And it's not financial. I think it's broad. Write down the 5 values that you do in your life. And in those 5, write down how it would affect money. So like if you wrote down family as a 5 value, if you wrote down independence as a 5 value, or health is a 5 value. So then we go, okay, if independence is one of the 5 values, then owning property that's tying you down doesn't fit you. And I'm sure, Ryan, for you, it's health. So if you put down health, then I'm sure that you do things to make sure that if you, God forbid, you lose your health, you don't lose yourself financially. If you put down wealth, putting everything in like having cash in the bank doesn't motivate you, but building businesses, building assets does motivate you. So understanding who you are as a person through the value system that you have, and then going out and then building wealth. So align your values with your money, and watch it grow, and then send me a message. I'm happy to talk about it and like go into deeper on like, okay, well, this is who I am as a person. How do you translate to the way that I build wealth? If you do that, chances are you're going to make a lot more money because you're going to be a lot more motivated for money. And I think that's a big piece that people need.
Speaking our language, man. Aligning actions and decisions with values is what we're all about here at Move the Chains podcast. So, Yair, man, this has been an awesome conversation. I can't thank you enough for being such a great guest. And for everybody listening, thanks for being here. We will catch you on the next episode.